best-selling stories of a boy wizard have left millions spellbound. But behind the fantasy is a real world of haunted castles and magical places. A world where witchcraft was once reality. Legendary beasts stalked the land, and men sought the secret of eternal life. Join us as we pull back the curtain from the greatest children's classic of a generation. Over 100 million copies sold worldwide, #1 in the bestseller lists, and now a blockbuster movie. Not bad for a schoolboy who's just a figment of one woman's imagination.
Harry Potter came to me on a train in 1990. I was sitting just staring out of the window, and the idea just fell out of nowhere. It was the purest stroke of inspiration I've ever had in my life, and I've been writing about him ever since. Literally, I have boxes loads of stuff on him.
Harry Potter may have fallen out of nowhere, but the magical world he inhabits didn't just appear out of thin air.
There are all sorts of pieces of information, great depth to the writing.
Partly out of fun and partly so that it resonates universally. J.K. Rowling has pulled myths and legends from all over the world.
I think she's got a brain the size of the planet. I think if she'd wanted to be a rocket scientist, she would have been a rocket scientist. And I think I'm just grateful that she turned to books, and that's what she did.
Setting off on a journey to discover the truth behind the fiction of Harry Potter, we follow a trail of tantalizing questions. Which real figure lies buried under a mythical train platform and haunts corridors, real and imagined? How much magical lore is drawn from real witchcraft? Which ancient myths sparked modern counterparts? What boarding school lays claim as the real-life Hogwarts? Which ancient games inspired Quidditch and proved more dangerous? And what's the great myth about riding a broomstick?
In the Harry Potter book, they've got it that way round. But reality, it should be that way round.
Finally, what's the truth behind the Philosopher's Stone and the medieval figure who claimed to have found it? Our journey begins at an ordinary London train station, but a special place for Harry Potter. King's Cross Station is where Harry leaves the mundane world of the Muggles for a magical realm of adventure.
Muggles are the rest of us. Muggles are parents. Muggles are people who don't understand you if you're a kid. I mean, this is the wonderful notion of Muggles. But it's a fascinating fact that this King's Cross platform, the 9 3/4, which is the mysterious gateway to the world of Hogwarts, also has a link with real-life legend.
Beneath the station wind dark tunnels forbidden to the public. Yet perhaps Harry Potter's creator knows the legend of the warrior queen who haunts these vaults. Like Harry, she waged a David and Goliath battle against the forces of darkness.
Queen Boadicea, a woman who took on the Roman Empire, virtually sent the Romans packing from Britain, and then when the hordes of the Roman legions came back, died a heroic death in the midst of battle.
The legend has it that she's buried at King's Cross Station, and the legend also has it that she's buried on platform 8, which was platform 10, which is where we're standing now. The tunnels are disused, so essentially they're ghost tunnels.
Harry starts his journey above Boadicea's grave from the magical platform 9 3/4, gateway to a world of fantasy.
Well, at the moment we're on platform 9A at King's Cross Station. This is where platform 9 3/4 is based, where the Hogwarts Express train leaves for Hogwarts. Down there are the barriers between 9 and 10, where he grabs his trolley and runs through and breaks into this magical world where 9 3/4 exists.
Finding platform 9 3/4 is Harry's first challenge because it's hidden from everyday Muggles. Not that this has stopped Harry Potter fans from looking.
We get people from all over the world. We've had letters from Japan, South Korea, had visitors from Australia, from Asia, all wanting to come to see platform 9 3/4.
With a little help from fellow witches, Harry finally finds his platform and catches the magical Hogwarts Express. So begins his enchanting journey to the greatest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. Orphaned as a baby, Harry grew up with his uncle and aunt in a normal suburban street called Privet Drive. A very normal street, just like the one J.K. Rowling grew up in. Nichols Lane in the village of Winterbourne, just outside Bristol, the model for Harry's home in Privet Drive. Here, a quiet young girl called Joanna Kathleen Rowling played games of witchcraft with a boy whose name she would one day make world famous.
It was the last name, it was Potter. I don't quite know why, but for some reason that stuck with her. When we first met as friends, would have been 2 or 3 years of age, up until we were sort of 6, 7, and that was when Joanne moved out of the area. Joanne always had a book with her. She was always reading. I suppose there was probably about 6 of us all together the majority of the time. You lived all so close together, so you were all sort of friends and you all played together. Games that were played most of the time were witches and wizards, and when you all sat round in a circle as though you had sort of like a big cauldron in front of you, and Joanne was always the one who was reading out the spells. The glasses were definitely used as one of the dressing up articles.
Tucked away inside the house where Rowling grew up is another secret to the inspiration behind Harry Potter. A cupboard under the stairs, just like the one Harry's forced to make into his bedroom by his cruel uncle and aunt. Muggles who hate magic so much, they never revealed that his parents were famous witches. Harry's unhappy life is suddenly changed by the arrival of a friendly giant, Hagrid. A messenger from Hogwarts, Hagrid is charged with getting Harry everything he needs to start his new school, and whisks him to London. Here he gets his first taste of the magical world hidden within our own, a secret side of London no ordinary Muggle can see. Diagon Alley, a place based on some of London's oldest streets, and more real than perhaps even J.K. Rowling herself realised. Harry's first stop, Gringotts Bank. In one of its deepest vaults, he discovers his parents have left him a fortune, enough money to buy the magical tools he'll need for Hogwarts. In the Harry Potter movie, London's Australian embassy stood in for Gringotts Bank, yet nearby is London's real Gringotts Bank. An underground treasure vault that houses some of the world's oldest collections of silver.
The London Silver Vault is the biggest emporium of silver under one roof in the whole world. There are certain pieces which are very valuable, very, very valuable, and very old. There are things down there from the 13th century.
Like Gringotts Bank, the London silver vaults are extremely secure. The difference is that in Gringotts, the treasures aren't guarded by people. The bankers in J.K. Rowling's magical world are goblins.
Goblins, of course, have always existed in literature. Sometimes they're quite evil. Sometimes they're mischievous, but not malicious towards humans. but they're always a little distant from humans. They don't get caught up in any of the human emotions, human drama. You can't make an emotional appeal to a goblin, which makes them really a perfect banker. They're a little bit ruthless, and you could never go to them and say, I need a loan for something. They just, what do they care? You're a human. There's just no emotional connection whatsoever. So they're really the perfect bankers for the wizard world.
With his fortune from Gringotts Bank, Harry embarks on a magical shopping spree. Next stop in Diagon Alley, a school uniform inspired by folklore as spooky as it is real.
Well, when Harry Potter goes shopping, he aims for a black robe. Now, in the Middle Ages in this country, witches would wear black. Simply if they were threatened or endangered, they would actually better disappear into the darkness. Certain things, certain props, if you like, are used symbolically to attune the mind. The pointed hat, that comes from reality as well, because a witch believes they can raise the energy within themselves and then release it upwards into a spire, like a church spire, if you like.
Harry's other tools are rooted in ancient forms of nature worship.
The cauldron, for instance, now that comes under two terms, because you imagine the old crone stirring up her bubble and trouble sort of thing. That was purely used for medicinal herbs, but it also does represent the Earth Mother, the womb of the Earth Mother. So again, there we go into rebirth and fertility.
Harry buys the secret ingredients for his lessons in potion making from an apothecary, a herbalist's shop. Once again, our world and Harry's meet. Many of the herbs Harry buys are still used today, as herbalist Chris Headley reveals.
Herbalism is basically using plants for medicine, and it's a long tradition, and the plants have been used pretty much the same way for many years, but society changes. So the use of the herbs change, although the herbs themselves don't change, their use changes because disease change and conditions change.
One herb Harry uses is belladonna, also called deadly nightshade, because in large amounts it can be poisonous. It's said witches use belladonna to create potions for flying, a myth with a pinch of fact.
The witch tradition basically comes from the pre-Christian religions, and the pre-Christian religions were shamanistic. And shamans, one of the things that shamans do is to send their spirit off into the other world. Belladonna was traditionally made into a cream and rubbed in.
With such narcotics, the witch would transport herself to the spirit world, where she would seek a cure for her patient before returning to the real world. Harry's next purchase, the witch's greatest tool.
A wand, in reality, is used to aim energy and power from the person through and to the object and the wish. And what this really is for is to act as an extension of my own psyche. So I'm using the energy from here, focusing it down through my body and out to the specific need and end.
Like Harry, witches carefully choose the right kind of wand.
People vary in the woods they use, from hazel, birch. My own preference is actually pine.
After an exhaustive search, Harry finds the wand that best suits him, Hollywood. Finally, Harry needs his familiar, a small, helpful animal with just a touch of magical power. Another notion bubbling up from the real tradition of witchcraft.
Traditionally, owls are associated with keeping lookout. They're like watch owls as opposed to watchdogs, if you like. And they were generally used, and if they were to be startled, they would give a warning cry, and the witches could disappear.
Harry's owl is called Hedwig, but the wise owl isn't as clever as we think.
Oh, the wise old owl, the white owl you see in the movie, really is a big myth. But in the wild, they're not very bright. In fact, I don't know why owls are not extinct. Eyesight is a problem for them to start with, because of their binocular vision. They've got big eyes to pick up more light at night, but the quality of their vision is actually quite poor close to. A long way off, they can see very well. So that wouldn't be very good for trying to deliver letters.
Delivering Harry Potter's post isn't the only thing owls aren't good for.
Of course, the snowy owl in the Harry Potter film would really make a lousy pet for Harry Potter, a really lousy pet, because they don't show any affection there. The only thing an owl is loyal to is his stomach and who can provide the next bit of food.
So why have these creatures always been associated with the supernatural?
They have this very slow, methodical pumping of the wing, and it's very spooky. And of course, you can imagine walking past a churchyard at night, and the ghostly silhouette in the moonlight of a barn owl flitting over the tombstones, and then it gives up this piercing screech sound. And of course, that's when anybody walking by probably does a 4-minute mile back home.
With his shopping complete, Harry is ready to begin a magical adventure of discovery, one that anyone can share.
I think the books work tremendously well on different levels, and I think that's why children return to them. They read them once, then they start all over again, because they then go down a deeper level, or they concentrate on a bit that they may have missed. I mean, I'm rereading them all the time, and I'm still finding things that I haven't seen before.
As Harry journeys northward on the Hogwarts Express, he passes through Northumberland and the site of one of Britain's most haunted castles. Here lurks a ghost that has walked straight into the pages of Harry Potter. The Grey Lady, a phantom that wanders the fictional corridors of Hogwarts and the real corridors of Chillingham Castle. As the castle's curator, Cyril Robson, explains.
The Grey Lady was Lady Mary Barclay. This ghost is supposed to be her waiting, wandering around the corridors and the stairs to welcome her husband home. What I hear are footsteps and the rustle of the dress. Most of the time it's been in here, in the Great Hall.
Sensing ghosts in our world is not as easy as it is in Harry's.
I've never seen a ghost, ever, and I don't think most people can. If you try and concentrate on a ghostly noise, it just goes.
What the Grey Lady of Harry Potter's world did to become a ghost, no one knows. Not so the Grey Lady of Chillingham Castle. A jilted bride, she refuses to rest, waiting for her day of reunion or revenge.
Her husband deserted her, went off actually with her sister, and left her holding the baby. And this ghost is supposed to be her waiting, wandering around the corridors and the stairs to welcome her husband home. But what the welcome would be, I don't know with his reputation. I don't think open arms.
Could Chillingham's Grey Lady have inspired J.K. Rowling to invent the Grey Lady of Hogwarts?
I think she does have a magpie-like approach to information, and I suspect it's quite unconscious. I mean, I think it would be really hard, again, to say, oh, well, that's the Grey Lady that she was thinking about. I think she would find that very, very difficult to pin down. But what I think she is fantastic at is observing and noting, at some level of her very large brain, these things. And then I think they appear in order to deliver this plot.
The fascination with ghosts, I think, comes from the fact that they seem to be a bridge between the living world and the world after death. And that's a mystery everyone wants to solve. They're also wonderfully scary. Kids love to tell each other ghost stories. Adults love to hear ghost stories. And the genius of the ghosts of Hogwarts is that you can interact with them.
Like the invisible Peeves the Poltergeist, a constant irritation to Harry and his friends.
Ooh, tea for me! Ooh, catch me if you can!
Peeves is just the sort of restless spirit often found in places like Chillingham Castle. It's another link between the fictional world of Harry Potter and our own Muggle world, but not the last. Leaving the Grey Lady behind us, we push on in search of the real-life Hogwarts. We pass the Goathland Steam Railway in Yorkshire, playing the role of Hogsmeade train station in the movie. And then the medieval Alnwick Castle in Northumberland, where much of Hollywood's version of Hogwarts was filmed. But where in Britain is Harry's school meant to be? Some readers think the clues point to Scotland, where J.K. Rowling actually wrote the first Harry Potter book. It's one of the few places in Britain where a school of magic could be hidden away from the prying eyes of Muggles. Another clue is the sight that confronts Harry when he gets off the train. A vast, misty lake ringed by high mountains, upon which perch the rambling towers and ancient battlements of a medieval castle. Could Scotland be home to the real Hogwarts School of Wizardry? In the remote Highlands, a region steeped in sorcery and witchcraft, stands a real school with startling parallels to Hogwarts, a place of dark mysteries and secret passages that was built by a real wizard. Gordonston, one of the most select boarding schools in Britain. Its former pupils include Prince Charles, and its traditions are as old as royalty. The school was originally home to Sir Robert Gordon, a 17th century sorcerer who, unlike Harry and his friends, had no qualms about dabbling in the dark arts. According to Scottish folklore, he sold his soul to the devil.
Oh, wha has nae heard o' that man o' renown, the wizard, Sir Robert o' Gordonston, the wisest o' warlocks, the Murrayshire chiel, the despot o' Duffus, and Freen o' the Deal, the man whom the folks o' wild Murrayshire feared, the man whom the friends o' wild Satan revered. Oh, never to mortal evil renown, like that o' Sir Robert o' Gordonston.
You must remember that you're in a part of the country which is well known for ghosts and all sorts of surreal things happening, and he's very much a part of that in this part of the world. And that's why he was called the Wizard, because below where we're sitting now, he had a laboratory where for 7 years he sat. He eventually, after 7 years of sitting by a fire, achieved the construction of a salamander. A lizard came out of the fire and told him some of the secrets of life. So there are all manner of exciting stories about this man, the Wizard.
Sir Robert is buried beneath the old chapel. Legend has it he feared the devil would come to claim his soul, spurring him to construct the school's most unusual building, the Round Square.
The purpose of this building was that he would have somewhere to hide when the devil came to catch him, because it has no corners at all. It's made an interesting boarding house. I mean, someone like Harry Potter would have absolutely loved it, because there's a housemaster trying to keep this place under control, and the boys can just keep going round and round and round ahead of him all the time.
The Round Square failed to save Sir Robert Gordon. Legend says the devil eventually caught up with the sorcerer. History says he died in his bed. Like Hogwarts, Gordonston has its own secret passages.
Now, there are several interesting stories about secret passages. There is one which we have yet to find, and there are probably young people digging for it even as we speak, which is a passage that goes right out to the cliffs and the sea, which are about half a mile away. But that, as you might imagine, had rather more to do with smuggling than anything to do with wizardry. However, within the building, and these are still extant, are two hidden passages which are called priests' holes. And these date from the time when there was a great period of religious persecution in the north of Scotland, and houses such as this had places where the family priest could be tucked away if enemy forces came to the door.
I think part of the brilliance of J.K. Rowling's idea for Harry Potter was to use a traditional British boarding school as the setting. And the notion for kids all over the world, most of whom are never going to set foot anywhere near a British boarding school, let alone a traditional one, of being able to go to a school which is a magical place, as opposed to the humdrum school that they actually go to, is a stroke of genius.
The first thing that happens to a new arrival at boarding school is being selected for a house, a decision that will affect Harry's whole school career.
I know all about the sorting hat at Hogwarts, which struck me as a very entertaining way of doing things. And then I thought, well, perhaps actually Gordonston isn't that much different in this respect either, because I think for the big wide world out there, it seems as if there is a type of sorting hat here, but in fact you're looking at the sorting hat right now, in that parents may express a preference for where they wish their sons or daughters to go, but I retain this rather ferociously as the headmasters write in the nationality to say where they should go. It's most important in a school like this nowadays not to have all one type in one house. So what one does is actually through interview and having reports, learn a good deal about them before they come, and then say, now I think that one would be right for there. Because rather like at Hogwarts, of course, the sense of loyalty and community within the houses is very keen indeed, and therefore they soon get to know where they belong.
At Hogwarts, the members of one house are notorious, Slytherin, and Harry nearly finds himself joining them.
The Slytherin house, I mean, they are really not a nice bunch of people. When I talk to children about this book, that episode with, the sorting hat comes to haunt them. They're absolutely shattered by the fact that Harry nearly got stuck in Slytherin.
No boarding school is complete without team sports, and Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is no exception. Harry's favourite sport is Quidditch, a game J.K. Rowling describes as being a bit like basketball. It also uses hoops, but there the similarities end, because rather than 2 of them, Quidditch has 6 hoops and 7 players, each on a broomstick. And instead of 1 ball, Quidditch uses 4. The game's main scoring ball is called a quaffle. 2 other balls, called bludgers, aren't for scoring points, but for knocking players off their broomsticks. So each team has 2 players called beaters, whose sole job is to stop the bludgers with hockey-like sticks. The 4th and last ball, the golden snitch, is the size of a golf ball and flies around the pitch trying to hide. It's the job of each team's seeker, the position Harry plays, to find and catch it. When he does, the game is over. In Potter lore, Quidditch originated in the 10th century, when in medieval England whole villages turned up to play such savage early versions of soccer as game ball, a vicious sport that involved fighting for possession of an inflated pig's bladder. Close to Gordonston, an even older Celtic game called shinty is still popular today. Played with a stick called a caiman and a small hard ball, the game dates back thousands of years.
There's no doubt that shinty is one of the oldest games in the world. There are pictures of stick and ball games taken from carvings and from gravestones that go back into the mists of time, and we know that it was played all over Europe at one stage. The name shinty has been there a long time. It's from a Gaelic name, syntag, which means bounding or running game, and caman is the crooked stick.
The sport is now relatively safe, but when played by Highlanders as a war game, it could be lethal.
Well, I think in history it would have been a pretty rough game, yeah. The stories are that there was a lot of people carried away with broken limbs and split heads and things. In the Highlands of Scotland, there was the clan system, and the clan chief, he liked to keep his men prepared for battle. There was always arguments and disputes going on. And if they practiced battle movements with swords and such like, there were serious injuries, so he was losing men. So shinty developed into the main training.
shinty bears some resemblance to Quidditch. But there's another real game that relies on players riding swift, sometimes unpredictable transport, using sticks to strike a ball. Polo, a favourite sport of Gordonston's most famous pupil, Prince Charles. But a horse is no substitute for a broomstick, and riding a broomstick is what makes Quidditch so enchanting. They come in all makes and models: the Oakshaft 79, the Comet 140, and Harry's own prized broomstick, the Nimbus 2000. Riding a broomstick in the night sky is perhaps our most abiding image of the witch. But what if it's wrong? According to one modern-day witch, it is.
The idea of witches flying on broomsticks, that actually came from a pagan fertility tradition, where a lady would sit on the handle, brush at the front, jump up and down in fields, and it was said that the higher she could jump, the higher the crops would grow. So, in the Harry Potter book, they've got it that way round. But reality, it should be that way round.
Perhaps. But at J.K. Rowling's fictional school, the students study real mythology.
She's using classical themes, classical elements, and that makes her books have a universal appeal, but she uses them in a way that is really all her own.
Among the characters Harry learns of is Circe, a powerful witch who turns men into pigs in one of the greatest stories ever told, the Odyssey. Written by a blind Greek poet named Homer in the 8th century BC, the twin epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, enchanted generations of Greek children. The epic voyage of the hero Odysseus resembles Harry's own journey.
He has a distant goal to get to. He has an enormous number of obstacles placed in front of him, and monsters whom he has to face and challenge and overcome, and bewitchments which he has to resist, and all the time pressing onwards towards his goal. In some ways, Harry Potter is a modern Odysseus.
The stories of ancient Greece are one of J.K. Rowling's favourite sources of inspiration. Characters from Greek legend crop up throughout the Harry Potter books. A real figure from ancient Athens provides the name of Harry's schoolboy arch-enemy, Draco Malfoy. Commemorated in the night skies as the constellation of the Dragon, Draco was a lawgiver from the 7th century BC who became infamous for his harsh punishments, giving us the word draconian. Malfoy's mother, Narcissa, is based on one of Greece's most famous myths.
Narcissa comes from the Greek myth of Narcissus. We get the word narcissism or self-love. The story of Narcissus is the story of a Greek youth who fell in love with his own image and, admiring it in a riverbed, fell into the river and was drowned.
Harry's giant friend Hagrid gets his name from a Greek character, exiled from the heavens but allowed to stay on as animal keeper by Zeus, king of the gods. A role almost identical to Hagrid's job as a gamekeeper in the stories of Harry Potter. One of Hagrid's charges is Fluffy, the three-headed dog, who guards the out-of-bounds corridor on the 3rd floor of Hogwarts.
Well, Fluffy, the three-headed guard dog, is really Cerberus from Greek mythology, a three-headed guard dog. And one of the things that Rowling does that is so impressive is she stays absolutely true to the original myths while using them so lightly in her own stories. Fluffy is the perfect example.
The lake next to Hogwarts hides another monster, once thought mythical, but all too real.
The giant squid, because it lives so deep and is so rarely seen, has gripped people's imaginations for millennia. The ancients talked about the kraken. And this idea that there is an immense creature deep in the depths of the ocean, or indeed the lake at the bottom of the grounds, is a wonderfully fascinating one because it's a combination of the mythical possibilities and reality.
Next to Hogwarts, in the Forbidden Forest, dwell yet more creatures from classical mythology, the stargazing centaurs. In that same forest live some of the most elusive creatures in Harry's magical world, unicorns, creatures hunted in vain in our own world.
Unicorns in Harry's adventures, as well as in classical mythology, are pure goodness. For centuries, people searched for them because it was believed that their horns or their blood would have magical medicinal qualities. And these characteristics of unicorns do come into play in the stories.
Besides Greek mythology, J.K. Rowling borrows heavily from Arthurian legend, as revealed in Harry's magical trading cards. King Arthur and the sword Excalibur, his half-sister Morgana the sorceress, Hengist of Woodcroft, a hero descended from the Norse gods, the druidess Cleodna, the Irish goddess of beauty, the sea and the afterlife, and the greatest of all wizards, Merlin. A figure much like Harry's headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, himself a member of the Order of Merlin. On the coast of Cornwall rises a rugged headland, and a 12th century castle with a legendary name, Tintagel. Far below its ruined spires, an even older bastion, Merlin's Cave, where some say his voice can still be heard in the ebbing tides. Tintagel Castle is where Merlin is said to have brought the boy King Arthur after the death of his parents.
The parallels between Harry Potter and King Arthur are quite extraordinary. I mean, you could almost start off with the fact that, like King Arthur, Harry Potter is spirited away by a magician, taken away from the place where his real parents are because of the danger that he faces. That's exactly the situation in the Arthurian legend. And then you take it further, that just as Merlin tutored Arthur, so Harry Potter at Hogwarts is being trained in using the magical powers that he has inside him.
With his queen, Guinevere, and his best knight, Sir Lancelot, Arthur united the kingdom and built the majestic Camelot, a story of three friends that has echoes in Harry's adventures.
Then there's the other interesting parallel that Ron and Hermione and Harry are not dissimilar to Arthur and Lancelot and Guinevere, which leaves all sorts of interesting possibilities for the way this saga will develop.
Arthur and his knights sat at a round table, a symbol of their friendship and equality. From here, they embarked on their greatest quest, the search for the Holy Grail. A sacred cup, said to have been used by Jesus Christ during the Last Supper, the Grail was reputed to have miraculous powers to heal. Like a questing knight, Harry seeks his own Grail, a magical stone, well hidden and highly prized. Called in the United States the Sorcerer's Stone, it's known to history as the Philosopher's Stone. Harry's mission? To thwart the evil wizard Voldemort from stealing it.
The Philosopher's Stone and the Holy Grail are, in many ways, very, very similar objects, in the sense that if you can get hold of this object, you have the secrets of the universe in your hand.
The Philosopher's Stone could not only turn ordinary metals into gold, it could bestow the secrets of immortality. Fervently believed in by medieval scholars, the Philosopher's Stone was first sought in the days of ancient Egypt, when mankind discovered the secrets of magic.
So much of what we consider magic and magical knowledge comes from Egypt, and Egypt plays a big part in the books. You know, the idea, for instance, even of wizards having wands goes back to Egypt.
From Egypt, the quest for the Philosopher's Stone was carried across Europe. In the Middle Ages, the stone became the obsession of early scientists called alchemists. If they could create the magical stone, alchemists believed that they could turn base metals into gold and unlock the secret of immortal life.
Alchemy was really, it's the roots of modern chemistry. Now, not modern chemistry as it's practiced now with electron microscopes and such, but certainly the experimentation with different chemical reactions, that grew out of the work of alchemists.
Over the centuries, countless alchemists tried to create the stone. None succeeded. Then, in the 14th century, one claimed to have actually done it. He's another figure from history who finds his way into the pages of J.K. Rowling. The real Nicolas Flamel was born in 1340 in France. He lived in Paris, where a street is named after him. A man of great wealth, he built many houses for the poor, one of which still stands, the oldest house in all Paris. Here, thanks to his generosity, the poor could receive a meal, as the modern owner, restaurateur Nadin Herkberg, explains.
This restaurant is in the house that was built in 1407, which is today the oldest house in Paris. It used to be a place where people would come and have a free meal. They could stay for one night, but it was not exactly free. They had to pray, and those prayers were for the soul of Nicolas Flamel.
And he always wanted to find ancient knowledge. That was what obsessed him. And one day, according to him, one night, an angel appeared at the foot of his bed and told him that a book would come to him which contained the wisdom going back to the earliest days of civilization. And sure enough, the next day, a poor old man came along with a book bound in brass covers and sold it to Nicolas Flamel.
Just one problem. The book was incomprehensible.
And thereafter, for the next 20 years, Nicolas Flamel travelled Europe to find someone who could translate this wonderful book. And only when he did find that person and was able to get their knowledge and open the secrets of the book did he find the secret of turning ordinary metals into gold and possibly the secrets of immortality.
When Flamel died in 1417, rumour spread that he had cheated death using the Philosopher's Stone. His house was ransacked by Parisians looking for secret stockpiles of gold. None was found. 200 years later, Flamel's story took a stranger turn.
People were fascinated by what had become of his book and what had become of him. They opened his tomb, and the tomb was empty.
Could the real Nicolas Flamel have created a real Philosopher's Stone, discovering the secrets of limitless wealth and immortality in the process? Just outside Paris lives Jean Dubuis, a modern-day alchemist who has followed the teachings of Nicolas Flamel for 5 decades. After years of experimentation, Dubuis believes he has found the real secret behind the stone.
Alchemy is misunderstood. I don't really think alchemy is about turning metal into gold. It has another purpose. Alchemy is really about gaining a knowledge of the inner world, a spiritual knowledge. I think the real quest of alchemy is for each individual to find his true self.
Harry Potter's pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone is the first step on his own quest, a quest to find his destiny, a tale as old as Odysseus and as new as the latest action hero.
The books work on all different levels. Obviously, first, they're just great adventure stories, and they're also great stories of an individual, a hero's quest to find himself and to fight evil. But they're also literary treasure hunts.
We all have a bit of Harry Potter in us, because he's not always good. Sometimes he makes dismal mistakes and errors, but he does always want to do what's best, even if he doesn't exactly behave himself the best way all the time.
Using myths and legends from all over the world, J.K. Rowling has created a world of her own, an enchanting realm that magically unites children worldwide.
One of the things I find most delightful about the whole success of Harry Potter is the fact that kids in cultures all around the planet are thinking about the same thing. They're excited and charmed by the same notions. It's like a community of enthusiasts that spread right around the globe. Harry Potter appeals to them all. I think that's great.
As Harry's saga continues to unfold, readers can expect to uncover more connections with our own Muggle world. And like the quest for the Philosopher's Stone, if we follow the clues in Harry's magical world, perhaps we can discover the real magic in our own.